Shane, how do you think you ended up right here?
Where do we even start? I was determined to leave this place better than I found it. For the most part, I'd say I let my gut be my guide.
Shane, how do you want to kick this off?
How do I want to kick this off? On a high kick and a high note?
So what are you doing here?
Today, we are starting a podcast called Shane on You.
When we talked about this last night, I wanted to make sure that this was not just going to be your normal talk show podcast, because I think that would be the easier thing to do and explain, but I don't think it really encapsulates why you're here.
Right.
So why do you think that you're here? And I don't mean in the studio.
Why do I think that I'm here on this planet?
Yeah.
To expand creation. I think I'm here on this planet to expand creation because I believe that I co-create with the creator of the universe. And until I physically get to see God standing before me making a chair or music or a light bulb or all the things that we see, feel, taste, and touch, it's part of our job to help expand creation and make things beautiful and make this life beautiful and make other people feel beautiful. And I think my purpose on this planet is for contribution. I want to leave a legacy. I'm not going to have children. You know, I'm a middle-aged gay man. I don't want kids, never have. But my legacy would be that I left love behind. I left music behind. I made people feel beautiful. I made people feel seen. I made people feel heard. And I touched hearts in some way that was inspiring and made other people want to chase after their dreams. Because for me, I think there's enough room for everyone in this world, no matter who they are or where they are, to succeed in whatever the dream is that is on their heart. And I also believe that when you are doing that with the creator who keeps planets in perfect proximity to other planets, there's nothing you can't be, do, or have. And I'm living proof of it, and I have receipts for it, and I want to show the world that you can do it.
That sounds more authentic than talking about live, laugh, love, and design.
Absolutely.
You said that you really want to make sure that people feel
inspired
and seen and heard. What was your first memory of being seen?
My first memory of being seen would be in the second grade when I was chosen to sing in the third grade choir, the solo for I'll Be Home for Christmas. And that's also around the time that bullying for being an effeminate little gay kid started to happen, because I got on stage and came alive. I literally started getting Botox when I was probably 22 because my entire childhood was me raising my eyebrows, which I can barely do right now, but all the time. And so I had 11s by the time I was 11. But I loved the attention and honestly, the praise that I got from being on stage singing. And it was the first time that I felt seen, I felt heard, and I felt like, oh my gosh, this might be the thing that gets me out of this small town. I didn't want to be a fisherman or a shrimper, not stripper, shrimper. My dad was a shrimper. I grew up on a shrimp boat. Yes, like Bubba Gump, nothing like Bubba Gump. But I didn't want that to be my life. I didn't want to make my living out of the ocean. I wanted to sing about it, honestly.
And is that what got you out?
That's what got me out. Gosh, before I could drive, I was 15 years old when I auditioned for Opryland. Remember, there was a theme park here in Nashville, actually, called Opryland. And I showed up in cowboy boots, white jeans, and a literal red, white, and blue American flag jacket made out of an American flag with a black cowboy hat on. I would never wear a black hat now and brown boots, but it was all there was in my little hometown of Calabash, North Carolina. And it was the late 90s. And I saw in the paper that Opryland was holding auditions. And so I went to this little hotel in Myrtle Beach and I sang Put Yourself in My Shoes by Clint Black. And then they moved me on to have a dance audition, which I didn't know was going to happen, but we did it and they loved that. And then the next thing I know, I'm preparing to hopefully move to Nashville. And then I got a letter saying that they would rather me work at Fiesta, Texas, which was in Texas. And I'm like, I don't want to go to Texas, you know? And anyway, I ended up turning that down. I stayed in North Carolina in Calabash, and I was working in restaurants with my family and running karaoke shows literally before I had a driver's license at a place called Crawdaddy's in Myrtle Beach. And at that audition, when I was 15, I met my now best friend, Karen Rochelle, who was a singer and a songwriter, and she auditioned for Opryland as well and took another job in Myrtle Beach at the Country Jamboree or something like that. And randomly one night when 16-year-old me was working in Crawdaddy's in a bar, and they all thought I was at least 21 because I was driving a car illegally because I had to get to work. No, I was 16. I was driving, but I had a license. I just wasn't supposed to be in a bar, but they didn't know that. And I didn't drink. So I was running the karaoke show one night, and Karen walked in, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're the kid in the American flag jacket." I'm like, "I am. And you're the girl that sang the Pam Tilla song. You're amazing." And we ended up singing a duet together on stage and just fell madly in love with each other as friends. And then I ended up becoming roommates with her because it would be easier for me to get back and forth to work. And we started noodling around and trying to write songs. Basically, when I turned 17 years old, right out of school, Karen called me. I was at my mom's house and asked if I would move with her to Nashville. And that's how I ended up here. Packed up my teal green Ford Ranger with a futon and about $300 in a can. And I drove to Nashville. And that's how it all started. I came from nothing and I've made something. So I want people who are like me to know that.
In order to show people how far you are from where you started, why don't you tell people where you started?
I grew up in Calabash, North Carolina, in a 2-bedroom cinder block house. My bedroom, which became a 3rd bedroom, was the back porch. It had roll-out windows, and my mom would wrap them in plastic in the wintertime to keep the heat in. There was a cement slab and an avocado green remnant rug on the floor that was often wet most times because either the hot water heater leaked or the washing machine leaked. I had a wagon wheel bunk bed and a race car sleeping bag for my blanket. And it was a very, very abusive and also traumatic childhood. And my dad was schizophrenic and bipolar and a drug addict and alcoholic. So I never knew which person I was going to get. But I did know that my surroundings weren't for me. And I knew that from a really young age. And I was going to get out of there come hell or high water. And I did.
Can you paint, I know it's emotional because I know your story and I know how much you've been through, but can you paint an even more vivid picture of what your childhood looked like?
Mm-hmm. My sister and I, my sister's 5 years older than me. And we started working from the time we were both probably 5 years old, because when my dad would come home with shrimp and fish and stuff like that, we'd have to clean them or head the shrimp or do things like that. And as soon as I could, I was bussing tables in some of my family's restaurants to make money because we had to help out. You know, if my dad wasn't well and was in a mental institution, my mom would get help from the government. But if he wasn't, we just all kind of had to fight for making our way. And I wanted to help my mom. My mom worked really hard. She struggled. She worked like a man literally next to my dad on the shrimp boat. And she worked in a clam house. Like, it literally broke her body what she did to keep food on the table for me and my sister, because she was just as strong as my dad, more mentally strong than my dad, for real. But If it wasn't for my mom and my sister, I don't think I would have wanted to live. I grew up going to church. My dad sang and played guitar, and so did my mom. And they led praise and worship in the church I was raised in. And from a very, very young age, I remember, the preacher being on stage and basically talking about me because I was the effeminate young little gay kid. I didn't know what that was yet, but I knew when he was on stage, he was talking about me. And so there wasn't a safe place in the home to feel safe with my dad. He was incredibly abusive. He beat my mom, me, and my sister. And then he led worship on Sundays in church. And I didn't feel safe there either. There was really no one to tell. People in our family knew, friends of our family knew what was going on in our house. But where I'm from, people kind of, in those ways, stay out of your business. I just wanted to have a better life. My imagination took me places. I'd see things on television when I would sneak to watch, HBO or whatever, and, or like the Jeffersons on TV or the Cosby Show or all these different shows that I loved when I was a kid. And I was so inspired by what was going on in New York City and imagining myself there one day. And for instance, there's a closet in the hallway of our little house that connected to the bathroom with a clothes hamper. And I decided I was going to make that little closet into my studio apartment in New York City. So my Aunt Susie had just put new carpet in her photography studio, and it was burgundy with little pink and white roses all over it. And so I put a little carpet remnant in the closet, and then I found a little lamp in the dump, and then I found throw pillows, and then I would put up little scraps of, pictures from magazines and stuff that I wanted to see happen for my life. So I guess you would say when I was a little kid, I was already vision boarding before vision boarding was a thing, and seeing what I wanted to happen for my life. And I learned very quickly that I had to keep that more to myself, because if you wanted more from yourself in the place that I was raised in, it meant you were trying to keep up with the Joneses. You know what that expression means? Like hoity-toity people.
Yeah, you're better than...
You think you're better than everybody else. And so, being the talented kid, being the singer, being the, boisterous little gay boy that I was threatening to a lot of people. And I had confidence and I believed in myself, but I only had confidence and I only believed in myself when I was on stage performing. I just became another person. I guess, Beyonce would say she becomes Sasha Fierce, I became Shania Shane long before Shania. But I knew that if I could see it, I could be it. And if I could feel it in my body, it would happen. And no one told me that. It was just a knowing in my spirit. And it wasn't because I asked Jesus into my heart that happened. It just, as far back as I can remember, everything that I believed would happen for me happened.
Were you safe in the closet?
Was I safe in the closet? Isn't that just a double entendre or whatever that word is? I felt safe in the closet. It was in that closet the first time that I was called a faggot by my dad. He was drunk and also in like a bipolar schizophrenic rage. And he was beating my mom because he had decided and said there's no way he could have created a faggot child and that I was not the fruit of his loins. Those were his words. And I was 9 years old. And I was sitting in a clothes hamper, scared to death as I heard my mom being hit and slapped up against the paneling in our house on the other side of the closet. But he couldn't get to me in there. I stayed in there until the slapping stopped.
What changed in that moment?
The thing that changed in the moment of hearing the F word for the first time, meaning faggot, was I felt dirty. And I didn't know why, because I didn't understand what that meant. kids hadn't yet really started to call me that name. It wasn't until I got a little bit older, you know. It branded me. It felt like a branding. I think a lot of people, especially in the gay community now, have tried to take it back, like it's powerful. I have friends with it tattooed on their bodies. And I don't know how I feel about that, you know? It's just like people who use the N-word, you know? It has such a negative, horribly torturous connotation. I don't see why we should embrace. I know words are just words, right? Without, you know, unless they have meaning. But that particular word was created to break your spirit. Completely break your spirit, to brand you and set you apart from other normal people. Nothing about me felt normal anyway. You know, I wanted bigger things from my life. I wanted to sing. I wanted to write songs. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to make things beautiful. I mean, my mom went away for a weekend one time and came back, and I had completely painted the kitchen with sponges. Y'all remember when sponge painting was a thing?
Our mom did that.
I didn't realize that sponge painting meant sea sponges. And so I cut up rectangular shaped dish sponges and just didn't water down the paint, just dipped them, painted the kitchen yellow, and I had seafoam green and pink and blue rectangular shaped sponges stamping all over the walls. I fell in love then with trying to make things beautiful on the cheap.
You kind of got yourself out of it, and I don't blame you, because I know that that's like one of your most painful memories, but you were definitely feeling like intense emotion when you were talking about your dad calling you that for the first time. Can you name those emotions? And just stay with it, Shane, because your body's and your mind's going to tell you where to go.
Yeah. Hearing the word faggot out of from my dad's voice was the first time that I can remember feeling real shame. I felt completely shamed, and I didn't know why, because I didn't know what the word meant. But I knew whatever it wasn't a good thing in his eyes. I felt fear, because if it was something that I was born with, I couldn't change it. And our household was not only mentally abusive, but physically abusive. And I was a really good kid. I didn't cause a lot of problems. Every once in a while, you know, I'd jump in to maybe try and stop a fight from my mom and my dad and maybe talk back a little bit. But I grew up in a house where you get your ass beat in the Deep South. Like, my daddy made us pick our switches when we were in trouble. So we'd have to go to the yard and pick our switch that he would beat us with. I rarely got hit with a belt. I got hit with a fist and a hand a lot more.
It's interesting that you say my dad was mentally and physically abusive, and you're like, but I was a really good kid, as if your achievements as a child or your character should determine whether or not your dad beats the shit out of you.
Yeah. I just never knew which personality I was going to get from my dad. I didn't know if he was going to be, praise the Lord, praise Jesus, let's sing a worship song together around the kitchen, or if I was going to get drunk, happy Ronnie, who could be silly and fun and cut up and be flirty with my mom, or if I was going to get, you've ruined my life because you exist, Ronnie, who was going to take his anger out on everybody in their house. I didn't learn about what was really going on with my dad until I was much older and probably really out of the house before I really fully understood it. I've been on my own since I was 15 years old. As soon as I could get out of there, I got out. My sister got married when she was 17, and I thought I was going to have an absolute emotional breakdown because she was the only thing that made me feel safe. Period. Like, my sister used to hide me under a mattress from him to keep me from getting hurt. And she took a lot more of it than I did.
Just stay.
I learned everything I didn't want to be from my dad. Which is really sad. I've learned in life you have to know what you don't want to know what you do want. I'm sorry.
You'd be sorry.
I don't go to this place very often. But what I learned is that nobody loved my dad. And so he didn't know how to love me. He didn't know how to love my mom. I mean, he knew the love that he'd been shown, and that's the love that he gave. His dad was incredibly abusive to him, his two brothers and his two sisters. And they had been on their own, just like I ended up being on my own. It's like it repeats this itself unless you break it. And something in me knew I was going to break it. I was going to be the one that got out and made something of myself. And come like hell or high water, literally, I would have everything I ever imagined I could want, need, or be. That's why I'm here. I'm finding my way to what the truth is, which is without love, we don't have anything worth anything. And I want people to say when I'm gone, they didn't just know me because of a song, but because I loved them well. It's such an honor and a gift and a blessing to get to create the way I do and share it with the world, whether it's me writing songs and putting them out myself or writing them for other people. But it also frees up space for a platform to inspire kids that were like me, that just could see their way out, but there wasn't any representation of that for them. You know, I was a little gay kid. There weren't gay things on television, gay people for me to look up to. Most of the pop stars were all closeted anyway. They weren't talking about anything. And I was determined that if I got out of there, I would be free and I would be me and I would be authentically who I am, how I was created. I'm the only me that there is ever going to be. There is never going to be another me. So I may as well try to do that the best that I possibly can, which means tell the truth and tell it all the time, whether it hurts someone or not. I always lead with love and respect. And I'm also willing to be wrong. There's so many things that I thought, oh, I'm doing this right. I'm doing this the right way. This is how we're supposed to behave. That wasn't right. I've learned which parts of me are about my ego, you know, which is funny because ego, edge, God, out. And I've learned that when I've waited for the other shoe to fall, it does. And I've learned that what I expect to happen, happens, whether it's good or bad. Love, a seed of love can grow like an orchard, but so can a seed of fear. And I've been bound and determined to live my life to sow as many seeds of love as I possibly can, and to encourage other people that they can do that too. That feels like a massive part of my purpose because, like I said, there wasn't people like me on television or on stage or saying, come on over here, you're going to be okay. Everybody's going to love you. You know, I probably, when I was a kid, performed a little bit more than I do as an adult, meaning trying to be somebody else I spent a lot of my childhood, it's weird to think of it this way because it sounds so negative, but people made me a liar. They made me a liar because they'd ask about my sexuality. Can you imagine asking a 9-year-old about their sexuality? I remember the first time I heard the word heterosexual and the first time I heard the word homosexual, and I didn't know the difference between. And I was on the school bus, and we were driving down near Sunset Beach, and there was a kid in the front seat in front of me, and we were listening to the Bangles' Eternal Flame. And he said, "Shane, are you a heterosexual?" And I couldn't answer. "Oh, because you're a homosexual?" And I couldn't answer because I didn't know the difference between the two. And why did it matter? And why are you asking a 10-year-old or however old I was? We need to look that up because whenever Eternal Flame came out, that's when that happened to me.
I got you.
When that was on the radio. The close your eyes, give me your hand.
Looks like 1988.
1988. So I was 10 years old. The first time someone said homosexual or heterosexual to me. And he could have only been just a 1988. So he could have only been a couple years older than me. But when I was a kid, middle school was 4th grade to 8th grade. So imagine that age difference of kids and the things that those kids were telling the little kids. So I'm sure he was an 8th grader that asked me that question. And then there was no way for me to go home and ask anybody. Like, who am I going to ask? Who's going to keep me safe?
Without the loneliness and the desperation of those darkest times, are you as connected to source? Because you turned to it because there was nothing else.
Mm-hmm. You mean when I was a kid, did I feel connected to source when I was a kid?
I just wonder if you would be this connected if you hadn't had to turn somewhere because you had nothing else.
Right. I would say when I was probably in my 20s, I wasn't running from God, but I was confused by what God was. And I lived in a 6th floor walk up on the Upper East Side, and someone had left a book on my windowsill, literally on my windowsill. And it was called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And I was like, well, that's funny that that's there. And I was really struggling with Christianity and faith because why would I want to be a part of something that didn't want to be a part of me? Every time I would go to church and someone would notice that I was a bit effeminate or if I was openly like, hey, I'm gay and I am here to learn about Jesus, they were quickly trying to change me or save me or pray the gay away, and I was happy with who I was. I was really thriving with who I was. And in my eyes, I was thriving. God, I had no idea the way I would thrive, like for real, once I had an encounter with God and everything changed. But I have learned that, especially for gay people that go to church, you have to really, really, really want to be there and want Jesus, because so many people that are there don't want you and don't believe in your kind and think that you are literally an abomination and that you aren't worthy of the same rights. You aren't worthy of love, and your love is going to kill you. I remember when my Aunt Sherry, who was my favorite, and she got me out of my scary childhood moments a lot. When she found out, because my mom told her that I was gay, I had to tell everybody on the phone because I lived in Nashville and everybody lived 11 hours away, and I didn't have any money. And I wasn't about to drive my stick shift Ford Ranger back to North Carolina, up and down through Asheville. No. My Aunt Sherry left a voicemail on my answering machine in my apartment on Old Hickory Boulevard over here at Turtle Creek is what it was called. And she was drunk as a skunk. And she's like, Shane, that shit don't flush. That's what she said.
That shit don't what?
That shit don't flush. Meaning my mama had told her. My mom had outed me for me to her. And that's what she left. Not I love you, not I'm here for you, not the understanding, kind person who got me out of circumstances when I was a child to make me feel safe. The one person that I thought loved me the most called to tell me that I was an abomination, and that shit don't flush. When I got that Marianne Williamson book, circling back around there, see. When I got that Marianne Williamson book, I opened it, and within the first few pages, I was like, oh my God, I could get down with this kind of God. This God that loves everybody, like right where they are, like connection, asking questions, having a relationship with him. I would love that. And I would say that book, and she was a Jewish woman, you know, and I was raised in Christianity, but Christianity wasn't saving me. It wasn't for me. I was told unless I was different, God would not love me. That wasn't an option for me. My life would never become what I wanted it to become, because from what they could see in their eyes, who I was a choice. So I was just bound and determined that at that point, after reading that book, I wanted to have a relationship with the Creator, with the Source. And that's what opened my eyes and what opened my mind and opened my heart. And I'm so grateful for it. And I've just had so many little miracles that were huge miracles, really. Like, who put that book on my windowsill on the 6th floor of a walk-up on the Upper East Side? And it just helped me to ask God if we could go deeper. I wanted a relationship, and I wanted to know more. And that was just the beginning.
I think where this is going to lead is helping people see that there's just unseen threads that shape and are woven into our experience, and that we do have control over them. And I cannot wait to see people's response to the show. And I'm really proud of you. I think this is going to be awesome.
I'm really proud of you. I'm so happy I know you. You're part of my plan. I love that I know at this point in my life that there are relationships that are meant to be. If we were Jewish, they'd be beshert, meant to be, that are ordained. Like that you were born and I was born in the time that we were born to cross paths and know each other. And that God knew this relationship would be on purpose. And I've shared, journal entries with you, which are like, Shane, that's channeling.
Yeah, that journal was not you speaking.
That God knew that we'd do this. And because he's in it, ain't nobody gonna stop it.
What's the name of this podcast, Shane?
The name of this podcast is Shane on You. And it's called Shane on You because that's exactly what I want to do. I want to spread the love that I've learned and spread the love that I've been shown to everyone, and put my version of what that looks like on everybody. Whether it's music, whether it's songs, whether it's making people feel beautiful, look beautiful, literally physically make them beautiful. Because, I was a hairdresser before I was a songwriter. Making people's spaces beautiful, like whatever it is. I just want to encourage creativity in the most positive way that I possibly can. That's why.